Well, for more, we can speak now to Thomas Leahy, who is a senior lecturer in British and Irish politics at Cardiff University. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What was the goal of this visit to Northern Ireland, would you say?
I think a good evening to everyone as well. I think the key part of the visit for Joe Biden and the US government is very much to, as your report was saying, get back power sharing in Northern Ireland, particularly post the Brexit deal with Rishi Sunak and the European Union, with the Windsor Agreement taking place. And I think being particularly more specific than that, I felt it was really an attempt to woo the Democratic Unionist Party, the main representatives of British Protestant unionism in Northern Ireland, back to power sharing. That was the kind of impression I was picking up.
I mean, it's quite a big thing to have the President of the United States come to Belfast and twist a few arms and ask those politicians to end their squabbling and get back to power sharing. I mean, do you think it's likely to have the desired effect?
That's a really good question. I suspect not in the short term. And we partly saw this in the build-up to Biden's visit, but also from some of the reception from certainly the Democratic Unionist Party, the leading British Protestant Unionist Party there. And their opinion was very much that, whilst it's useful, the President of America wants the peace agreement to get solidified, up and running again, but they also said that for them very much is entailing what happens with the Windsor Agreement and what's happened with the European Union and the UK government's discussions over Brexit, and obviously the new agreement under Rishi Sunak. So the reason I don't actually think this is going to work for the Democratic Unionist Party, there's two key reasons I think at the moment they don't want to come back into government. One is obviously the Brexit deal, and that includes Boris Johnson's one with the European Union, but also Rishi Sunak's. And the reason that is because they don't like there being any kind of separate checks at all, or separate economic actions that are taking place different from Northern Ireland to England, Scotland, Wales, because they fear if there's that kind of economic border in the sea, as they see it between the European Union and UK mainland, it threatens Northern Ireland's place in the Union. The second point as well is that, last May 2022, the elections in Northern Ireland for the first time ever saw the Irish Republican Party Sinn Féin, which people may know obviously in the 90s and 70s and 80s used to be linked to the Irish Republican Army. They won the elections last year. They would have had the largest percentage of the vote and seats overall. And I think that with the decline in the Protestant Unionist population as well, and the figures for the census last year in 2021, it seems very much at the moment that DUP is going to hold out and play kind of hardball really over this Brexit business, because they're concerned about Sinn Féin leading the power sharing government, and also any distance between the UK mainland and Northern Ireland.
I mean, the president had a few carrots with him on this trip, and he alluded to Northern Ireland's economic potential. And the implication seemed to be that this political deadlock and squabbling was really holding the region back, economically speaking. Do you think that's true? And do you think his promise of future US investment, which he made today in Northern Ireland, is likely to perhaps have any additional effect? Or again, do you think that's just perhaps going to be secondary in the minds of the DUP and the other parties that are squabbling at this moment?
Yeah, very good questions. And I'd say on the first part, I think overall, I'm really kind of getting to the central part of your question, that I don't necessarily think the US's influence is going to be decisive here. And partly, again, because for the Democratic Unionist Party and the other parties in Northern Ireland, particularly the Liberal Alliance Party and the two nationalist parties, the SDLP and Sinn Féin, are very much saying, and the UK government, this is the best of both worlds, really, for the DUP. They have a connection to the UK market. They've also got economically benefits Northern Ireland still being within the European Union as well in terms of economic trade. The difficulty, I think, is that the DUP's backing of Brexit and the way they viewed Brexit was very much not about economics, in my opinion. It was very much about protecting, as they saw, kind of British Protestant Northern Ireland identity, which open borders and open trade they see as potentially a threat, because it starts to create a distance between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and opens up perhaps Irish Republic influence into the northern states. So yeah, there was some kind of encouragement about further investment, and yeah, there have been problems with power sharing being down because certain projects can't go forward because ministers aren't there to make decisions. But I don't think, coming back to that central point, it's going to sway the Democratic Unionist Party. The question is, and I think eventually they seem that they want to hold out. They're not a majority. They're quite keen to make sure that other people can't get what they want in terms of Irish nationalists. But yeah, you do wonder where that's going to go in the long run for the DUP, because they're going to run out of road where they're not majority party anymore.
And just lastly, I mean, there's a bit of speculation in the British media and other medias as well that this trip by President Biden is a little bit of a snub to the British government, not least the fact that President Biden is spending quite a lot longer in the Republic of Ireland. He's spending 3 days there. He was barely in Northern Ireland for 24 hours. Do you think there's anything do you think there's any? Would you give that speculation any credit at all?
That's an interesting question. I think we certainly heard this afternoon that the British Conservative government and Rishi Sunak himself say, look, it's just the itinerary of the trip. I'm seeing Joe Biden again soon at numerous events. I do think what we've seen over the last couple of years, particularly when Joe Biden has been in power in the United States, they weren't very happy with what was going on with Brexit, particularly under Boris Johnson, and the impact that would have on the Northern Ireland peace agreement, they felt. They also haven't been very happy on another matter, which is about how the UK government has attempted to pass essentially an amnesty act related to Northern Ireland conflict incidents that was still under investigation. They spoke out against that. So there's certainly background that could say that it's not a coincidence that maybe Joe Biden didn't spend so much time in the UK and Northern Ireland and talking to Rishi Sunak. But nonetheless, I think he certainly does back this Windsor Agreement that's come through because it stabilised the situation in Northern Ireland. So it's difficult to tell. But as I said, there is background incidences about Brexit, also about dealing with conflict legacy that suggest there were slightly frosty relations. Rishi Sunak's probably stabilised that to a bit because of the recent deal.
Well, perhaps President Biden just wanted to spend a bit more time with those distant cousins of his in the Republic of Ireland. Perhaps that's the explanation. Thank you very much indeed. Thomas Leahy, Senior Lecturer in British and Irish Politics at Cardiff University. Thank you.
Thank you.